Welcome everyone to today's Talking Circle, where we're going to talk about starting, sustaining, or growing your anti-trafficking work or your victim services using federal funds for victim services. Singit samu uagindi yain ta'in sayain tete ta'in ko'o ta'in mat ta'in Navi Yoa Kawa a Agoyotun Navi Marikana Kawa a Jamie Bird Demu Ne o Oke Winge I o Mu. Welcome. My name is Jamie Bird. I am a member of Oke Winge. I am also with the Human Trafficking Capacity Building Center. The center is a coaching and development hub assisting organizations and tribes with starting, sustaining, or growing their anti-trafficking work. The center sponsors the Talking Circles webinar series, convening skilled practitioners with registered participants to discuss topics related to human trafficking. You can find other Talking Circle webinars on the center's website. Today, as we talk about healing for our victims of crime, I encourage you to take the time for your own well-being and care using any cultural items to support you in today's discussion. This topic requires meaningful attention by all who do this work, including those of you who are joining us today. Please, let's take a moment to center ourselves through a song by John Ross, traditional leader at the Alaska Native Justice Center, who will offer an opening prayer for us.
I guess that's me. Good morning. Yetal kun. Yagali yetal kun. John Ross Sheiji. Can you hear me okay? Hope so. I appreciate this opportunity to help start off this meeting today. And as you guys work together to support people on their healing journey. I don't have a song, but I do have a prayer. I hope that's okay. Dene Eshlan Shida, Shutsitsatna Yagan and Hitana Gaila, Denayanak Ethlin Ak Yeshtu Churatna. I'm Denina Athabaskan. My ancestors are the Kenai Peninsula people in Alaska. And I live and work on the land of the Dena'ina. Kodi Jangu Dena'inach Reshnach. I'm speaking to you today in the Dena'ina language. And I want to share this prayer with you. It's called Nahanua Duchidatkani. It means our work prayer. And it's an acknowledgement of our heavenly parents and our ancestors, and it's a request that whatever work is being done today, that it will turn out for the best. So I will say the prayer, and then I have the easy part, and you guys have the hard work, and I hope you have a good session today. Chanan Nakoltani, Yali Jani Na Akilanda, Yalach Kuna Yatalkun. Thank you, Great Spirit, Creator. We have a good day today. But Chadach Nelna Shnakoltani, we pray to you. Chakainak Inchetni Natukta. We say thank you, our Father. Shlukunalaka Kukantat. You gave us everything. Yari Kilan Eslen Gu. Whatever is on earth. Chanan Eslen Bunkta. Chadalkari Niltu. Thank you, Earth Mother, for our provisions. Na'asnena Duchidaliyi. We respect our homeland, the earth. Eoch Katsadalsiyi. We live upon the outdoors. Chanan Yuyonk Nadeznaka. Thank you, our heavenly parents. Natsitsatna Nuchelnash. We remember our ancestors. Nacheataina Da'a Chakalkudal. Our ancestors who are still walking with us. Kodi Jangu Nanuni Datoch. Help us today. Kuta Ush Chutudal Chenizan. We want to go the right direction. Nakol J Chukayogonugadatli Na Akilanda. We have the light and we know the way. We have a compass to guide us. Yari na hanua sluku yalach katula sadi. Yari na hanua sluku yalach katula sadi. Yari hanu sluku yalach sadi. Whatever our work is about today, may it turn out for the best. Kocha. I hope you all have a great meeting today and learn many new things as you work together to find ways to support people in their healing journey. We're all on a healing journey. Thank you and have a good meeting.
Kunta Waha, John, for sharing that beautiful prayer and starting us off in a good way. I'm grateful for your words as we will be talking about this topic. Now I am pleased to turn it over to our moderator and colleague, Taisha Wood.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taisha Wood. Yat she Taisha Wood nishye, twitzo ne nishle, de betla jenabashis chin, but ahni dashi che, hashgan it's ahni dashinale, sega hodzan de nasha. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the prayer, John. I know that will continue and our panelists will be blessed. It says that you were going to do a song, but you corrected, so you're doing a prayer. So what I'm thinking is that now opens me up to sing. And I do have a medley in mind. It's by Keith Secola. It's called Indian Cars. So here we go. I'm kidding. I'm not going to sing. I just thought that would be a good segue. You know, we're all about songs. Songs makes us happy. Music is wonderful, but no singing on my part. I am a former police detective, not a singer, with 17 years of tribal law enforcement experience in Arizona. Majority of my time in police work was as a detective. I worked in the Crimes Against Children's Division, and I worked areas of sex crimes. And before I left my position with law enforcement, I did work a few crimes involving human trafficking in Indian country. I'm happy to be here. As mentioned, I will be the moderator for our discussion today. I think it's a great day for us to gather and to learn and to share stories and share experiences. I know it's a virtual meeting, but I know we'll gather a lot, and we've already been very active on chat. So continue with those introductions and meeting each other. Today, we're going to talk about starting, sustaining, or growing a tribal victim service program. As you may know, each tribal nation has its own history, culture, language, and spiritual practices, and each survivor's journey is unique with personal experiences and individuals' desires for healing. During today's conversation, our wonderful panelists will share their unique experiences with their own tribal victim service programs, and we encourage you and invite you to share your thoughts in the chat. Before we begin, I want to also mention tribes, tribal consortia, and tribal representatives can request non-competitive federal funding through the Tribal Victim Service Set-Aside Program, or as some of you may know, as TVSSA. The Office of Victims of Crimes administers this funding each and every year, and on all eligible applicants receive funding to support their services for victims of crime. It is a non-competitive application process. Our panelists will also discuss how they have used TVSSA funding to support victims. Just a reminder, you can submit a question at any time using the Q&A feature on your screen. Are you ready? Okay, let's get started and meet our first panelist, Renee Bork.
Hensche Ishtanjo. My name is Renee Bork. I'm a citizen of the Muskogee Nation in Oklahoma. I'm coming to you today from the ancestral homelands of the Kickapoo Tribe of Oklahoma, the Absentee Shawnee Tribe of Oklahoma, and the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, known today as Choctaw, Oklahoma. I am currently the program manager for the National Center for Victims of Crime and our newest center, which is called the VAST Center. It's the Victim Assistance to Support Tribes, where we provide technical assistance and training to tribal programs in many, many areas related to Indian country victimization. I've been in this field for about 20 years, growing from a domestic violence survivor to a tribal advocate to a police officer to a federal victim specialist. I've even worked on the opposite side as an investigator for the defense. So I feel like I've come full circle now as a program person. And Mado for John for the opening prayer, and Taisha, you gotta love that native humor. I was looking forward to you singing. But thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be on today.
We are so glad to have you, Renee. Thanks for being here. Our next panelist is Marlene Mack.
Good morning, Taisha. I am still giggling. What a great way to open this. It is so funny. In fact, my name is Marlene Mack. I am the Senior Manager of Alaska Native Justice Center, and my role is to oversee programs. And so I have the wonderful opportunity to work with different projects here at ANJC, not only advocacy, but we have a youth and adult reentry program, as well as a great legal team. I am Anupok. I am also Swedish. I was born in Barrow, which is now called Ukkiavik. And I am a tribal member of Nome Eskimo. So thank you again. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Marlene. We're definitely looking forward to hearing your contributions from Alaska. Our next panelist is Meredith Hungate.
Tanake, Niat Meredith Hungate. So just to kind of give you some information about me, I'm a citizen of the Catawba Indian Nation in South Carolina, and I currently serve as the Director of Justice Services for that nation. So with that, I oversee our justice branch, including our judicial branch. I also oversee our victim services programs. And then I am currently working on our policing project to set up our first police department. I'm a member of the South Carolina Bar, and previously I served as a tribal court advocate for the Salt River Pima tribe. That was wonderful because I got to appear in court all over Indian country, and I got to represent a lot of victims in their civil matters to help make sure that they got their lives back. And I'm excited to be here.
We are happy to have you here as well, Meredith. Just a little bit of info. Meredith, I am coming to you live from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community in Arizona. It's currently 115 degrees here, so I don't think you'd want to be here right now. I'm inside.
95 with an 85% humidity, so I might actually trade it.
Again, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. In case you didn't hear my reminder earlier, I'm going to remind you again about our Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to submit your questions. As we begin, I'll get started with a few of my own. Renee, let's start with you. You ready, Renee? Each tribal community and each victim is unique. How do you determine which services your community should offer to assist victims on their healing journey?
Thank you for that question. It's actually one of my favorite questions to answer. I don't know how many people realize, but there are 574 tribal nations in the U.S. And I won't take Marlene's thunder, but the majority, there are 229 in Alaska, and the rest of them are in the lower 48. And each nation comes with their own history, their own treaties, their own culture, their own language, their own spiritual practices. There's no one size fits all. My coined phrase is always, you can't cookie cut Indian country. As each person must travel their own journey of healing, that's going to be synonymous with specificity in each tribal community. It's going to look different in each and every tribal nation, as again, the culture, the resources, the available and accessibility of services are going to vary all over the country. Ensuring that cultural services are accessible is critical to any journey of healing. And these sometimes could be informal or formalized. They could be formalized programs through, say, a tribal victim service program, a tribal court, tribal law enforcement. Some tribal programs may offer healing practices like talking circles, or other traditional methods of prayer, while other tribal programs may not have formalized services. Sometimes it's just the community resources are known in a more traditional communal way, such as elders knowing where to turn for a specific crime has occurred and what traditional practice to provide. And it's not something that's like published or publicly acknowledged at times. It's usually just communal based. Um, Collaboration is extremely important with tribal programs, especially for our non-native service providers, because we want to ensure that we're providing that cultural resource and we're giving our victims autonomy to choose the resource that they want and need to access. It's also important to note that tribal affiliation is extremely critical in assessing these services. For example, myself as a Muskogee woman, I would specify traditional methods for my nation for my healing. And although another nation may provide cultural practices, it may not be specific to my history and the culture of my people. So it may not be as spiritually helpful on my journey. So I always try to help educate folks to understand that if you're working with Native people, just identifying them as a Native and referring them to the only Native resource that you know may not always be the best service. And so, making sure that you identify that cultural, that tribal affiliation, that relationship with that individual's tribe is extremely important. And, a good way to describe that is we have a lot of tribes that are matrilineal and patrilineal. And my tribe is matrilineal. So it may not be appropriate for me to go to another tribe per se that's patrilineal and speak sexual abuse. That could be insulting to tribal leaders or tribal healers. So that's another reason why you need to be extremely cautious in identifying, ask questions and identify that tribal affiliation.
Thank you, Renee. I agree. You brought up some very good points. Cultural consideration is of the utmost importance when dealing with tribal victims. We definitely probably will return back to more of that topic later. Our next question is going to be for Meredith. Meredith, TVSSA funding can be used to expand victim services by requesting funding over multiple years. How has your program grown using this funding?
Absolutely, fantastic question. So the Catawba Nation has been able to expand our services a huge amount by really kind of focusing in two different directions. We increased not only the services that we provide, but we also tried to expand out the population served through those TVSSA fundings. So for us, one of the things that we did is we began by identifying areas with clear gaps in services, mental health, additional housing, things of those nature. And then we use the TVSSA funding to expand to fill those gaps. So now in the last few years, we've been able to now begin offering on-site mental health counseling, assistance with substance use treatment, advocacy for child and youth victims, and then also advocacy for our seniors and at-risk incapacitated adults. One of the other things that we've been able to do that's been really exciting for our department is that we've also used this TVSSA funding to address some of the departmental needs as far as grant management and employee supervision. And that's the sort of thing that is not necessarily an obvious solution, but it's been very helpful because it essentially frees up our advocates to focus on the things that they care about, which is advocacy. So for instance, my position is actually partially funded through a TVSSA grant. And that allows me to do a lot of things that are really helpful for making sure that we're as efficient as possible, like improving our workflow, updating our policies and procedures and forms, and doing things like setting up MOUs with community partners.
See, I started singing and I forgot to put myself off mute. Sorry. Thank you, Meredith. You brought up some great topics as well. One of the key points you mentioned was partnership. I think partnership is a great transition to my next question for Marlene. Marlene, the Alaska Native Justice Center, also called the ANJC, serves individuals statewide from each Alaska Native Corporation region. Each region includes an intricate network of villages, federally recognized tribes, city and borough governments, not to mention the Alaska Native regional nonprofit organizations. Partnerships must be key to doing victim service work in Alaska, right? Would you discuss how various partnerships can support a tribal victim service program?
Thank you, Taisha. Of course, I'm smiling because I want to laugh because of what Renee said earlier. And first of all, these ladies on this panel are just so much fun to work with. And this is a really good example of partnership and collaboration. Not one moment would I hesitate to reach out to anybody on this panel for advice or support. So this right here is a great example of all of us getting together to collaborate and build partnerships. As Renee said, Alaska has 229 of the federally recognized tribes. And with that said, most of these villages are off the road system. So we here in Anchorage to provide service have to get pretty creative and lean on the experts in those villages. Originally, ANJC was founded by advocacy, both advocating on behalf of the people that we serve and teaching those individuals to be advocates for themselves in their own regions. To do both of these requires collaborating with willing partners who can bring additional services and resources to the table. To achieve this goal, we all get together and we put people to the table and service providers, and everybody at the table does have a voice. We understand that no organization works alone, and to achieve our vision, we must rely on the partnership and support of our stakeholders. We will build on existing collaborative efforts and create new partnerships with stakeholders to make sure that these services are provided to our people. One of our 4 pillars here at ANJC of care is social justice. And our approach is bringing our community partners together to focus around important issues of delivery of services. Community partnerships are so powerful, and without recreating the wheel along with our partners, we create a referral tree that it best serves those peoples in those regions. We do believe that there is a no wrong door policy approach to our service delivery. And I wanted to kind of give you an example of one of our projects that we were working on with Department of Corrections. There was a project that we were interested in finding more about. And it was a grant project, of course, and it was for our reentry program. So what we did was we met with Department of Corrections. We provided them with the opportunity to work with us to see how we can best serve their people. And this project ended up being very successful, and we had a great return. Because of this, we showed that this is a possible model and how we can work together to achieve the same goal.
It's always good to have those success stories, and I compliment your thinking that, you know, this could be a model for others to replicate. And as we know in our work, as Renee mentioned, there's no cookie cutter solution in working with the challenges that Indian country faces. But if we were to have one nation and one organization, like you were mentioning, Marlene, where we could use an example or maybe amend that, adjust that to fit the needs of another tribal agency, let's say in you know, the Southwest, you know, that helps things. So thank you for your work in that. And I think it's commendable to say that you're willing to help others. To our panelists, we've been bombarded with questions already, so slow down. I'm only one person to read all these questions. I'm kidding. Again, don't be shy. We need questions. There's wonderful ladies here who all are happy to share their experiences and their, you know, in working with tribal victims and advocates. So please don't be shy. Send us some questions. I do have a few that I'm going to read off right now. Now that I've given that show, everybody's responding. So we're going to get through as many questions as we can. Any questions that aren't answered today, we will include them in a Q&A summary document. All those that have registered for the webinar will receive the recording and a summary of the questions following this session, okay? So our first question for our panelists, and what I'll do is I'll ask this question and then we'll just proceed with each panelist answering. Does that work for you, ladies? Okay. So first question, managing grant funds may seem overwhelming. How did you address this concern with your first federal grant? So let's start with Renee.
Oh my gosh, my first federal grant was like 20 years ago. And
Girl, you look good. You haven't been doing that for 20 years.
Oh, yes, I have. Thank you. Pour it on. Pour it on. Grants are extremely intimidating. The process does not, this is no dig at the feds, but the process does not seem to get easier as I grow in this business. And sometimes I think it's because it takes me a while to catch up to technology. And that's one of the barriers in Indian country is technology. And many times we will have folks doing a multitude of duties. Like you will have, a director of a program is providing the direct services, writing the grant, doing the reporting. So it becomes extremely overwhelming. And I think it goes back to partnerships. I don't think we can say partnerships and collaboration enough because I think we all need, I still need help in the grant, realm today. And fortunately, I work with a lot of really smart colleagues that have a lot of grant experience. So I'm super grateful for them. But I think it's, I don't think there's really any right or wrong answer. I think it's, again, especially in Indian country, it has to be individualized to suit your needs and to work collaboratively with the resources that you have. Did that answer that question?
You get an A in my book. Meredith and Marlene, either of you want to chime in on this and talk about your first federal grant?
Sure, I can. And it's funny when Renee said that, because when I first started with the NJC just 3 years ago, when I first started, we only had 5 grants, and now I'm managing over 21 grants. So it was really, really important for me to find my foundation before I start creating a system. And what I've seen help is separating of course, different rules and regulations of each grantor, whether it's OVC or OVW or ACF, and really separate the needs of those grants. I created a crosswalk so that I know what is due when, what deliverables are when. And another thing that helped me tremendously was to build relationships with the TA providers, the technical assistance providers. So if anybody is looking for a crosswalk to manage their grants, I feel free to reach out to me. I have no problem sharing that information. And it seems to help quite a bit, as well as monthly reporting. We do that here. And just because we are all so busy and our advocates and our case managers are out in the communities, we want to make sure that we capture their work monthly. And so that we're not waiting until quarterly or semi-annual to remember to include all the great work. So just being really diligent in collecting data is super important as you manage multiple grants.
Thank you, Marlene. Meredith, do you have anything to add to that?
I do, but I just saw in the Q&A or in the chat, just so that way Marlene could clarify. You just give us a quick definition of what you mean by a crosswalk?
Absolutely. So what I did, I believe that question came from Tiffany. What I did, Tiffany, is in Excel, I have created different tabs and crosswalks. What that means is if I have 4 or 5 OVC grants, I'm going to put who my grant manager is, who my TA provider is, what my grant deadlines are. And then I'm also going to put my goals and my objectives in that crosswalk so that I can make sure it's pretty much like a strategic plan. but it's something that I created so I can look at multiple at the same time. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Marlene, and thank you for catching that, Meredith. This is teamwork. Good job. Thanks for getting my back. Since you're on cue now, how would you answer that question?
So I'm relatively new to grant management. I went to law school. I didn't think I was going to be managing any grants. And so I've only been doing it for a couple of years. And I went from managing 1 grant to managing 7 with 3 more on the way. So it became very overwhelming very quickly. One of the things that was very helpful early on was to set aside some time on a regular basis, once a week, once a month, to keep my grant files updated, because regardless of any due dates or anything else like that, you just need some time to, save everything to files and put everything in the actual physical files and make sure that everything's updated. The other thing that I found that was really helpful, and this has been something that we've just kind of implemented in the last year, once I started applying for outside of DOJ grants, is really looking at how we're collecting data. So there's some limitations on research and things like that, and that's definitely something to look into. But if you are collecting some data specifically to try and improve your program, not trying to put any results out there other than just helping victims, there's a lot of data that you can collect beyond what you would even think. It doesn't necessarily just need to be who somebody is, what their gender identity is, what crimes they're victims of, the kinds of services that you provide to them and things like that. That can all be tracked. And not only does that help with grant reporting, it also helps with some sort of program evaluation later, if that's something that you decide to do. And that can also be really helpful for program sustainability, because it gives you a lot to work with if you decide you want to apply for a different grant.
Thank you, Meredith. All of this has been really insightful. All of you have different experiences, and it's really good to hear how each of you have handled your first or consecutive grants after that. I don't know if you guys see this, but in the chat, we have a few people that have volunteered to request your services. Marlene, you already have some fans out there. Let's start. I think we covered that. So yeah, we had all answered that question. Let's go on to the next question. I think this is going to be a good question for all of us. What are some cultural healing services used to support victims of crime? Again, what are some cultural healing services used to support victims of crime? Does anybody want to volunteer to go first on this?
I will, since the direct services is
Thank
more
you,
my
Renee.
forte than the grant management. Again, I'm going to just kind of piggyback off what I said in the opening. There's going to be a wide variety of services available in different communities, and it's going to be dependent on a lot of things like your location. Are you in your homelands to where those services are accessible? Are you in an urban area that it may be a little more difficult to locate those services? Are you going to be accessing the federal system, a tribal system, a state system? I mean, there's just so many stakes to look at for Indian country victimization that there's really no one, again, there's no cookie cutter approach. In my tribe, we have different practices, which may look similar to some of the tribes that I've served. I've been really fortunate to serve reservations all across the country. The one that I served the longest is when I lived at Pine Ridge, and they have similar practices, and they did sweat lodge and stuff for our sexual assault victims. And that was a great resource to have. But we also had other services that weren't really discussed because of the cultural factors. So it wasn't something that we really talked about with anybody other than the victim. So again, there's going to be, there's not a list. So the best piece of advice I can give you is make sure you are connecting with the local tribal folks in your area. And also you can, search websites like the Tribal Resource Tool and their Strong Hearts Native Helpline. There's many tools online that you can find to access those services, but talking to people that are connected to that tribe is going to be your best resource to get those cultural services. Thank you.
Good information, Renee. Marlene or Meredith, anybody want to chime in?
Sure. We are very blessed to have John Ross, who gave the opening prayer. He actually, we recently hired him on our staff to provide that traditional healing and to help our staff guide those methods of healing. And so prior to that, very similar to Renee, is we have those conversations with our participants to see what their support system is in their area and how do they heal. And if they don't know, through conversations, we find out what works best for them. But again, we are very, very big on partnerships and collaboration. We knew we needed some work in that area, so we collaborated and hired a tribal healer so that we had that opportunity for not only Anchorage, but for the state. So he is able he can do virtual like this with folks outside of Anchorage as well who are off the road system.
Thank you, Marlene. Yes, you are very lucky to have John working with you and on your team. I was very glad that he was able to join us and we were able to meet him today. More in regards to what your partnership, that you've made and the things that you're doing with partners, there is a question related to partnership. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to that. Question reads, you talk about partnerships, but who should we reach out to when we partner with other agencies and organizations? Again, who should we reach out to when we partner with other agencies and organizations regarding partnerships?
So I can give an example of when I first started with ANJC and we brought on a new project. Depending on what that project goal is, we realize that we have conversations with leadership to find out what their ultimate vision is with this goal and what we said we were going to do in our grant narrative. So if it is to serve victims of crime, who does that well in the community? So who is already established and does it well in the community? Because we certainly aren't here to recreate the wheel. And so if it's Victims for Justice, which is here in Anchorage, we will collaborate with them and start building those partnerships through them, through someone who does have the experience and the history of serving this community. If they do it well, we definitely want to be there as a support system and collaborate together with different resources that we all offer.
Thank you, Marlene.
I can just jump in. One of the resources that I use in my other grants related to justice that I think can be really helpful for working with states, local agencies, counties, and things like that. That's something that can be very difficult sometimes. A lot of the time people just have a fundamental misunderstanding of how tribal justice works, what the unique needs of victims who live on or off the reservation but are a member of a community. One of the things that I found that was really helpful is there's an organization called Walking on Common Ground, and I believe they're a technical support provider for the OJP. They can make some recommendations of, other people who have gone through some of the same things. That's an organization I've reached out to whenever I've had some trouble with, not just community partners, but partners in the surrounding state.
And I'll just add quickly, a partner to not overlook that sometimes is, we get so caught up in organizations and directors and management of programs. Your boots on the ground folks, your law enforcement, your advocates, your court personnel, they're generally already working together. They generally will already have some form of relationship formed. That doesn't always trickle up the ladder to management. So sometimes reaching out to those boots on the ground people, and they may already have some relationships developed to help you to start forming, an even broader partnership.
Thank you, Renee and Meredith and Marlene for that. So we have a few other questions and I'm trying to coordinate to where we're kind of within the same topic. So we have one question regarding consultation lists anywhere. So the question reads, sometimes grantees will hire consultants for implementation. Is there a consultant list anywhere? Okay, that's one question. And then sort of related to what we were talking about is how do you use OVC funding to support traditional healers and healing practices? Is it allowed as a support system by the feds? So I'm gonna kind of put you guys on the edge of your seats here. So you have those two questions. What you feel is you're better to answer, what you're more confident and you want to share and you're excited about, we'll let you answer that. I can repeat it once you go. So this is, you know, that they have in game shows, they have that last part where you just double the points in Jeopardy round, or what is it called? Double Jeopardy round, or, you know what I'm talking about. You guys are just like, no. This is the double bingo round. This is where you get the big bucks. Okay. So again, the question is regarding consultation lists. Is there a list anywhere that you know about? And then also, how do you use OVC funding to support traditional healers and healing practices? Is it allowed as a support system by the feds? Go.
Okay, I can answer most of that. I honestly do not know if there is a list. We create our own list here, and I spend a lot of my day, and I have no shame. Some people here from Anchorage know that I will reach out to anyone and any organization to see how they can help our participants. We create our own list internally, and it's not just myself. It is like a team of 4 that has created this mass list. As for OVC and their list that they may have, I have reached out to them many times asking for either job descriptions, and through that, I've created my own list based on the research I've done. And what we did to hire a tribal healer was we actually put that in our narrative, supporting our reasoning for that as well. So when they read the application, they knew what our ultimate goal was, they meaning the grantor. So we not only put it in our narrative portion of our grant, but we also put it in our budget.
Thank you. Renee or Meredith, do you want to add to that?
I'm glad to jump in.
Okay.
Or to cut off Renee there. She'd just opened her mouth. So I don't know of any specific consultant lists. I do know that some of the organizations that a lot of tribal victims services departments will partner with, some of the national organizations and things like that can help you. If you need a specific type of consultant, they can't recommend them, but they can let you know some of the people that they've worked with to establish, that they're real organizations and things like that. On our end, we haven't used a ton of outside consultants. Primarily when we're using consultants, we're using community members or people who have some previous experience, sometimes citizens. It really depends on the circumstances. And as far as traditional healers and healing practices, so on our end, one of the things that we did pretty early on is we actually partnered with the court before it was one division, and then our child care division, and as a group put together our resources to create something we call a cultural curriculum, which is a full curriculum of things that we believe would help somebody achieve like minimum Catawba competency, especially for people who are disconnected or who have some trauma related to living on the reservation, things like that. And with that, when we designed the narrative, including that cultural curriculum, one of the things that we included in there was our cultural educators. And so some of that's going to be some traditional healing, our lodge master for the sweat lodge and things like that. But some of that is also our healers who are helping by engaging in like pottery, canoe making, any one of our traditional practices. So just, putting it in the narrative and putting it in the budget, and also making sure that it's a justifiable actual expense, that's absolutely something that is allowed.
Thanks, Meredith. Renee, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll just piggyback a little bit. As far as there not being a consultation list, I love to use this phrase that my daddy always uses, and because he says we're our best resource, right? So he always says, and we're always in the business. That's what he says. You aunties are always in the business. So it's telephone, telegraph, teleindent. So if you want to know who's providing services, talk to each other. These meetings, these chat boxes, I talk to everybody because I feel like that's my forte. I may not always know what to do, but I bet you I know somebody who does. So I think that collaborating with each other and networking is a great resource because I don't know of any straight up list. I do know that the National Center for Victims of Crime has a pretty extensive cadre of SMEs and TA providers, but I don't know of like a comprehensive list. And going to the cultural services, just going with what Marlene and Meredith said, if you put it in your narrative and you're really specific about what you want, pretty much it's fair game. When you're working with crime victims compensation, I will say that gets a little bit different, a little sticky sometimes, depending on your area. I think actually in Oklahoma, it took us a really long time, but we have a pretty good comprehensive crime victims compensation that allows for a lot of specific cultural things with burials and memorials and so forth. So I think if you, again, partnership, so that you can educate people on what you need in your community, what your community needs, as far as from funders, is again going to be a really helpful resource.
Thank you, Renee. Wow, we really got some good information. And I know a lot of you still are, have follow-up questions to the information you were given. Feel free to throw that in the chat box because we're not done with these ladies yet. We're going to have them continue to answer the questions, not live, but they will get some time after to address your questions. So again, those questions that were not answered today live will be answered and included in a Q&A summary document. So yes, they have homework. You guys will all receive the recording and a summary document following the session. Ladies, I'm very impressed by all of you. I'm so glad for meeting you today and being a part of this talking circle. This has been a very informative conversation. I hope our panelists have offered all of you some new insight for building a tribal victim service program. This discussion has also encouraged, I hope this discussion has also encouraged you to apply for TVSSA funding. So if you haven't applied yet, please apply. If you applied and maybe you didn't get a response, not sure really how that works, but just try again. If you have questions on that, feel free to address those questions to us as well. The Office for Victims of Crime releases the TVSSA funding solicitation annually at the beginning of the year. To be notified of the solicitation for applications, subscribe to OVC News. OVC will also share news about OVC programs, initiatives, and other funding opportunities. The link will be in the chat. Remember, all eligible all eligible applicants will receive funding based on their population size. Please contact the Human Trafficking Capacity Building Center to learn more about TVSSA or request assistance with victim service program planning. The center's contact information, again, is in the chat. Well, I'm glad I could see all of you again. I lost you for a little bit. Thank you, Renee, Marlene, and Meredith for being here today. All of you have been wonderful panelists. You guys are all very intuitive and resourceful, and thank you so much for the work that you are doing for Indian Country. We will be following up with each of you through email, attaching relevant resources, a Q&A summary document, and recording of this discussion. We're not done yet, so don't leave us, okay? Before we close with a prayer, please take a moment to respond to the closing poll. You see the poll? Please complete it. Appreciate your participation in the poll. To end our conversation in a good way, Sandra Bursey, the Executive Director for the First Nations Women Alliance in North Dakota, will offer a prayer.
Hi, okay. Buju Kagane Dang Mash Kiki Kwe Indigenous Cause. Wapshki Makwadudem Mikina Kwaju in Dunjaba. I said my name is Keeper of the Medicines. I'm a polar bear. That's the clan I come from, and I'm living on and was born and raised on the Turtle Mountain Chippewa Reservation. I consider myself an Anishinaabe, even though I'm part other things, but that's where my heart is with I have an Anishinaabe heart. So I'm gonna I just thought you were crazy, Taisha, when you were gonna sing Indian Car. I was like, oh, that's really a reach, you know.
I'm gonna have you sing with me next time, Sandra.
That was so funny. Oh my God, I love that kind of humor. And I'm constantly caught off guard by people like yourself, and I'm like all in and believe what people say, and then people laugh at me. So but I'm gonna do a smudge and just a short prayer, maybe 15 minutes or so. No, I'm just trying to be like Taisha. And but my smudge, we call it 4 direction here. It has cedar, sweetgrass, sage, and tobacco all mixed up. So I say all the heavy hitters are in here, and even the shell itself represents the water. So it actually does. And then of course the lighting it and stuff, then that has the fire in it. So it's a life-saving little, just in this little package. Often my life is saved because I can just whip it up and pray when I need it. And I don't know if I know all of you, if I've met some of you, but I'm really glad to see all of you on this side of COVID. It's been a rough time especially for Indian country, really, really tough. So now I'll start my smudge and do a prayer. And I think virtual smudges are as good as any kind, as it's real. It's, I'm sending all of this good medicine to you. So Creator, Gitchi Manadu, Tunkashala, Grandfather, I come before you in a really super humble way, in gratitude for this talking circle that I was honored to participate in today. We're all here in this circle today for a reason. Our nation is greatly affected by human trafficking. Our nation's particularly by sex trafficking. Since I've moved back home to take care of my mother, I've seen trafficking in my homelands. I've seen it. I know what's going on. I pray that all our relatives' eyes get opened to this, and that they see it for what it is, and that as a nation, as a continent, as people indigenous to this great land, that we become leaders in taking care of our people and of the people that are guests on our land. So all peoples, red, black, white, and yellow, we need to watch out for one another, and we need to take care of one another and ensure one another's safety. So I'm very, very honored today to be with this group, Creator. Protect them, watch over them, help their hearts to feel good inside and to feel strong and to feel like champions, the champions that they are. If they're in this circle, they care. Thank you so much, Creator, for all our blessings during these summer months. All across the continent, we have people doing their summer ceremonies. Remind us, Creator, as we drink and as we eat and as we pray, to offer the essence of all that we do to those who are sacrificing for us by not drinking, not eating, and by sitting in prayer for days and days. Never let us forget that, and never let us lose complete and total appreciation for that sacrifice. I want to ask for special blessings for my sister in this work, for Renee. She asked me to be here, and I'm really happy. I learned a lot just in this past hour. I'm grateful to be here. Just asking, Creator, that you bless everyone, bless their families, bless our children, our families. The people that we know right at this minute are being assaulted. Watch over all of us, Creator. Help us to be good relatives to one another, all my relatives. Thank you. Thank you for letting me say the prayer.
Thank you, Sandra. There's some strong words. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our journey, our healing journey, our resource journey. I feel like we've all been empowered with your words and that heavy hitter bundle you have. You know, size doesn't matter. It's what's inside, right? And I think that holds true for all of us and all the work that we do. So thank you for that. I think it was a good session. It was a good day, wasn't it, people? It was a good day. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the future to another Talking Circle event. Have a good day. Be well. Be safe. Goodbye.